Good evening, ladies and gents, wherever you may be around the world, and welcome to Splendid Isolation number 233. As usual, I'm going to start us off with a tune.
Take up the white man's burden, send forth the best ye breed. Go bind your sons to exile, to serve your captives' need, to wait in heavy harness on flooded folk and wall. Your new God's sullen peoples have devil and have child. Take up the white man's burden, in patience to abide, to veil the threat of terror and check the show of pride. By open speech and simple, 100 times made plain, to seek another's profit and work another's gain. Take up the white man's burden, the savage wars of peace, fill full the mouth of famine and bid the sickness cease. And when your goal is nearest, the end for others sought, what's love that heed and folly, bring all your hopes to naught. Take up the white man's burden, no tawdry rule of kings, but toil of serf and sweeper, the tale of common things. The ports ye shall not enter, the roads ye shall not tread. Go make them with your living and mark them with your dead. Take up the white man's burden and reap his old reward. The blame of those ye better, the hate of those ye guard. The cry of those ye humor are slowly towards the light. Why brought ye us from bondage, our loved Egyptian night? Take up the white man's burden, ye dare not stoop to less, nor call too loud on freedom to cloak your weariness. By all ye cry or whisper, by all ye leave or do, the silent, sullen people shall wail gods and you. Take up the white man's burden, have done with childish days, the lightly proffered laurel, the easy ungrudged praise. Come down to search your manhood through all of thankless years. No age with give or wisdom, the judgment of your peers. Take off the white man's burden through all of thankless years.
And that was, of course, the excellent Chris Gard. If you like good music, please go and check out Chris Gard's YouTube channel. He's got some good stuff on there, including quite a lot of good contemporary music as well as traditional stuff like that. Okay, I've got AI is going to be joining me in a few minutes. Other than that, I don't know what guests I'm going to get this week because it's usually potluck. You get who you get. Or don't. And I know a couple of our regulars are otherwise engaged or sick this evening, so at least two of our regulars can't make it. So if I'm scrabbling around for things to say, You'll know the reason. Please do make sure you hit the like button on YouTube, people, because it really does help the channel. And also, if you want to support the channel, or if you want to ask a super chat question, which always get addressed towards the end of the stream, you can do so via Entropy, and that link is pinned at the top of the chat on YouTube. Okay, I had an interesting day on X today. I got blocked by a South Asian Labour MP, and I blocked him back, as I usually do to people who block me. I also got criticised for a thread I did about the Royal Navy field gun competition. And looking at this chap who was criticising me about it, he had woke as fuck in his bio on X. So I thought that's pretty good. And then I also got criticised for the same reason I got blocked by the South Asian lefty MP for saying Rishi Sunak was not really an Englishman. Of course, he's not. I got criticised by a guy who is a anti-car lycra-wearing cyclist fanatic. So I had a pretty good day on X on the whole. I'm quite happy to be criticised by those sorts of people. So yeah. And I actually, good. Mitch is going to be joining us shortly, because you lot will soon be fed up with listening to the sound of my voice. So Mitch and AI will be joining me fairly soon. That will be good. Yeah, I actually managed to get some sleep last night, which was good, because for anyone who doesn't realise, I'm down under, and it's like only just after 6:30 a.m. on Sunday morning here. So when I'm doing these streams, it's usually quite early. Also, if you haven't done so, please check out our Wednesday history stream, which was about Wellington's British Army in the Peninsular and Napoleonic Wars era. Good evening, AI. How are you going, mate?
I'm all right, Iron Duke. I won't be able to stay for too long, so apologies. This is my one weekend where I'm a bit tied up with work and things. So, but I will. I'll stay on maybe for like half an hour or so.
Yeah, cool. Well, apparently Mitch is going to be coming on in a few minutes. He didn't realise what time it was, so that's why he's not here at the moment. And
Okay, cool.
I did send links to various other people, so we'll see if any of them turn up. I did actually send a link to Bo this week, to History Bro, you know.
History.
Yeah,
No.
he was in our chat last week, so I thought, well, if he wanted to join the stream, he'd certainly be very welcome. So I sent him one link.
Yeah, I mean, I will be honest. He is I think he's probably my favourite. He's my favourite Lotus Eater, just for the history content alone. I mean, I could watch and listen for that for hours on end. But
oh yeah, he's done some really good history. Yep, absolutely. I was on a stream with Bo years ago now, doing a stream about Trafalgar with Daughter of Albion. That's how long ago that was.
Oh wow.
Yeah, when Daughter of Albion was making YouTube videos.
You know, I think it must have been him and Carl Benjamin years and years ago. I mean, I think, yeah, it must have been years ago. They did like a 2 or 3-parter of Alexander the Great. That one was a good one as well.
Yeah, no, I can believe that, because I know what's his name? What's his real name? I can't remember. Carl is into his ancient history, which is why he used to be Sargon of Akkad.
Sargon of Akkad, yeah. Of course, the great Akkadian king, if you will.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I think it was his. The guy who used to work with him. He doesn't now. But
like
the guy,
Callum.
Callum. He went to the place where Sargon of Akkad was the king at one stage, I believe.
Yeah, he went there on his. I mean, 'cause I streamed with Callum a few times, and we used to during the COVID days we used to like play Hearts of Iron
Hmm.
on like this multiplayer server together, and I think Carl used to drop in every now and then. So that's how I know Callum, and yeah, he went to Iraq a couple. I think it was about a month ago now, and he found Andrew these stone tablets
Yeah, I saw
in the
that.
middle of the desert.
Yeah, saw that on his video. Just amazing. They're thousands and thousands of years old. They're like older than the pyramids, and they're just sitting in the desert. Yeah,
And the thing that was, it was kind of like there were people in like the comments, and even he was like saying, "Should we tell somebody about this?" And I'm like, I mean, you can't. If he was to pick it up and take it, he could go to prison for a long time in Iraq. But at the same time, if he leaves it and tells like someone in the authorities, it
mm,
could just be either destroyed by some crazy Islamist or sold into black market. You know, because the country is very corrupt. It's run by corrupt paramilitaries.
yes,
Thank you, thanks Bush, thanks Bush and Blair. Um,
yeah. Didn't they do well? And all those weapons of mass destruction they didn't find.
yeah, yeah. What was it? It was like they said it was like a sand crawler, like it was some Star Wars level, mobile sand crawler that could like was like had the army like switchblade sort of Swiss Army knife style missile system. It was absolutely. I mean, it was beyond just ridiculous.
Yeah, it was
Um,
absolutely insane. And Bush and Blair and Howard in Australia, they must have all known it was a lie.
oh yeah.
You know, it was just.
Wait, what does Sonny Jim mean? AI going clubbing for pride? What do you
I
mean
have
pride?
I have no idea what he means. I presume it's some sort of joke, mate.
Yeah, yeah, there better be a fucking joke. No, I'm not. I don't do clubbing, and it's just work. It's just work over the weekend, and uh, it's just boring stuff. And
I used to do clubbing when I was much, much older, but certainly not for pride. But anyway,
British pride. Yeah.
yeah. But anyway, um, did you have anything as a first topic you wanted to bring up this week, Al?
Well, while I'm here, I thought we'll talk about what's been going on today, um, with the uh, sort of hotel protests.
Oh,
Uh,
I saw your excellent interview with the independent journalist dude.
yeah,
What's his
Jack Hatfield.
Yeah, you've got. If people haven't seen it on AI's channel, which is AI Shire Homelander on
Yeah,
YouTube, he's got an interview with this Jack Hadfield chap who's been covering the migrant hotel protests.
yeah, he's been
So
covering. He's
recommend
been
that.
Yeah, he's been covering uh part of the Epping. He was the one have you seen that viral Canary Wharf one where that Green councillor got called a stupid fucking cunt to her face? Then she was
Quite right.
shocked. I
Yep,
mean, she
quite
was
right.
shocked back into oblivion by that outburst by Cockney Man. As I think I called him Essex Man, or
Hmm.
Cockney Man or something like that. Um, and
Did you see Did you see the film that was on X on Twitter today? AI of all the Antifa twats at one of the, somewhere in London, of course, and they're all allowed to mask their faces. Which, of course, if they'd have been uh, local people and right and proper British people, the police wouldn't have allowed that. But because they're left wingers who the police escort to these places, they're allowed to cover their faces like the cowards they are.
Yeah, because Antifa or Black Bloc. I mean, Antifa is what was formed in America in Seattle and Portland. Of course, Portland we remember very well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Black Bloc. I think Black Bloc has its origins in Europe itself, like particularly like Germany and Italy and France and stuff like that. But it's of course here. And a few years ago, several years ago, they notably they used to attack like capitalists, like symbols of capitalism. Like I think Fortnum Masons. several years ago, the windows were smashed in at Fortnum and Mason's.
Wow, that will definitely bring down society, that one.
and it was exposed that a lot of them were just like trust fund middle class twats.
Yeah,
Quite a
they're
few of
nearly
them
all
went to
they're nearly all middle class people. They're not certainly not working class people, because
no.
working class people are too busy to fuck around like that.
I mean, I think quite a few of them were like Oxbridge, the Oxbridge set, that sort of stuff. A lot of them came from were students in Oxford and Cambridge.
I was looking at the people in the demonstration that was put up on X, on Twitter, and the blokes were all they all looked either gay or total soy boys, all of them. And then the women that were there were the sort of women who you wouldn't go out with even if they wanted you to do. It's like that sort of thing.
Yeah. No. I mean, the interview was good. I mean, he's been covering a lot of it, and he has had a lot of people trying to tag him, just as Jack, on Twitter, to getting the Metropolitan Police to investigate him, because they're basically saying the fact that he's recording um, interactions with the local protesters and the police is basically inciting. They're trying to say that this is him inciting a riot, um, and it's ridiculous. And I don't think he's had anything. But what you're seeing, and this is the role of Antifa historically in Black Bloc, is that they are the foot soldiers for the regime,
Yeah.
and what they do is they are ordered by the regime to go out and attack the masses. And Sam Francis, who was an American uh, sort of right wing figure, Bowden talked about it a bit. A lot of our American friends, people like Semiagog and Radical Liberation, a lot of them talked about him, and he was the one that coined the term anarcho tyranny, particularly in somewhere like North Carolina, where you had historically Republican areas or conservative areas, and how liberal figures would take over an area and then institute like a little mini reign of terror in a very passive way, but in a very direct way, where the police would be used to target innocent people. Like, I think the example they used was in North Carolina, people who wouldn't wearing their seatbelts, because before you didn't have to wear your seatbelt, then it was strictly enforced, and the police would only go after that. But then when it came to crimes in cities and stuff like burglary, rape, shooting, stabbings, that sort of stuff, it was never enforced. And then when you had left-wing violence in those cities, particularly around the times of Bill Clinton, because this all came about by Bill Clinton, it sort of hounded people, particularly white, true Americans, working class Americans, out of areas, and they did this across the America. The most successful, I would say, would be California, where it went from a very white, um, white American state that was quite conservative, quite right wing,
Well,
even some
Ronald,
radical right
Ronald
wing.
Reagan was governor of California at one stage, wasn't he?
He was. Richard Nixon came from that. When he ran for when it ran against Kennedy, he beat Kennedy in California. He was a very, very popular figure. There were a lot of popular Republicans from there, and what they did was they uh, utilized control in urban areas in California, imported third worlders from Latin America, and slowly it became a non-white state. And the person I was reading the history on California, is Kevin Starr, who was a sort of I would say like a paleocon type of individual, again before he died in 2017, talked about that transition, and basically saying that in sort of in and because he was doing history, sort of he didn't put much of his political beliefs in there, but he was sort of saying, yeah, that transition was like the end, like, because California at one point was the reason why it was called like the Golden State was because it was like the end level of the frontiers people. It was a like a true promised land, like a virgin promised land of American exceptionalism, embodied American exceptionalism. Um,
That
and
makes
and
sense.
it's
Yeah, yeah.
and same as Oregon and Washington, and it's kind of a sick, twisted fate that Antifa and what the worst ideas and the most anti-Western forms of liberalism and everything could form up because they're invited hostile third worldists and also other groups into these cities to control the media, control what is said on the media, controlled ideas within the media, and also spread other poisons through the media, like I mean, I know I jokingly said the pornography stuff in one of the previous streams, like in California, like, oh, who controls pornography? But that's a real thing. That is a real thing because what you do is you create a deracinated and demoralized population, and that's why you know a lot of regimes historically wouldn't allow foreign nationals or people who have dual loyalty to have such senior positions because their natural inclination is to their own group, not to the masses. And that's why, America and us in Europe are facing the same existential crisis.
Yeah, that makes sense. Happy Cursed Plague Doctor in the chat has asked an interesting question. What is anyone's take on Tommy Robertson joining the Advance UK, which is Ben Habib's new little political party? AI, Mitch, do you have any takes on that?
I'll let Mitch go first because I've been talking for a bit.
I don't. I'm not invested in this party. I went off Ben a bit a long while ago because he just comes across as a massive loser. And as for Tommy Robinson, well, the guy's got like the opposite of a Midas touch, where everything he touches turns to crap. So if he's going to do it to Ben Beeb, fair enough.
Yeah, he's got a bit. I mean, to me, he's. Listen, I think Tommy Robinson is definitely targeted by the British state, unnecessarily so. Like he's spent much longer in prison than he should have done. But I don't particularly trust Tommy Robinson myself. He's got too many influences from certain Middle Eastern nations and certain news organizations that are based in Canada that are strongly linked to those Middle Eastern nations, shall we say.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's essentially just massively connected to the neocons, like what is it, Middle East Foundation or something, whatever it was called.
Yeah.
Like Robert Spencer, that kind of word.
He's quite connected to them. He's also connected to the so-called Rebel News Network, which is I think it's a Canadian group.
It's Ezra Levant. Ezra
Levant. Ezra
Levant,
Levant, I think,
yeah.
is the leader of that. And of course,
Yeah.
in Australia, you've got RV Yemeni, who claims to be an Australi, whatever the fuck that is. But yeah. I don't trust any of these people, to be quite honest with you. I really don't. And Tommy Robinson's been involved with that lot for a long time. And so, if you look at his marches, you tend to get gigantic Israeli flags over the top of British Union flags. And I don't like that either. That's just my view.
I mean, moving aside the sort of filio-Semitic inclinations of Tommy and the movements that he go around. I mean, I've looked at Advance UK, their sort of thing, and it's basically tolerance, free speech, yada yada. It is the same as any manifesto you could find in any the main parties or anything mainstream. There's nothing in there that's radical or different. And to be quite frank, they're not arguing even really for they're arguing for tackling the boats. I mean, I don't even
Mm.
know what Ben Habib is doing. There's nothing in there that stands out from the rest, and I'm guessing he would have had to. There's a great deal of money has been involved in this, and
How many of these small right of centre parties do we have? I mean, there's got to. I'm leaving Reform UK aside for a moment. We'll talk about them separately because they're in a slightly different category, if you ask me. But if you look at these very small little right wing parties, there are at least 7, maybe even 8. And most of them don't have a single MP. And I have argued for years now, and literally for years, I've argued that all of these little parties need to form some sort of an alliance so they don't run against each other all the time. But no, you've got all these egos and what have you going on, so they won't do that. And these little tiny parties are useless in terms of actually getting any power. I think that someone mentioned Rupert Lowe in the chat there, and that's why I was quite happy that Rupert Lowe didn't get involved in a separate party again. You've got to do something else. I don't quite know what, but you've got to do something else. So, Mitch, AI, what do you think about this?
well, the problem you got is on the right. At the moment, you have, I guess, what you call the containment right. So this is the maybe Civnat right, centre right types, which are Habib, Reform, if you want to put them in Farage in that category, and maybe. I mean, Rupert Lowe I put on the fence in the middle because who knows what at the moment. And then you have like the nationalists and maybe even a bit ethno-nationalist right. So that'd be like your Homeland and people out that way. And the thing there is I don't think those two groups can be bridged. That gap can be bridged. I don't think that they could be brought together because quite frankly, the containment right side might as well be leftist. And I do see the point in that because if you look at the Labour Party, what did their people do? They always support some foreign cause, right? Well, we know Tommy Robertson. We talk about Tommy Robertson, his people. That's what they do. Okay, for a different team, but it's still the same. Still the same rhetoric. And so I don't, and I think a clear example I remember was when you had Lawrence Fox and Steve Laws on debate, and I think Jack Hadfield, who I interviewed, was actually present. And he asked the question to Lawrence Fox. I think it was if Britain was to become 100% black, but they were all Christian and they all loved cricket and had 8 crumpets in the morning and all that sort of stuff. Would you be okay with that? British culture and all that. And Lawrence Fox said yes. And of course, Steve Laws and everything. Well, no, because they're not British. And so that I mean, I think that is just the clear dividing line where you cannot bridge that because either you think the British people are real and the thing should exist, or they don't. There's no real halfway house when it comes to this, you see. And I think and I think when you see these migrant protests bubbling under the surface of that, that is I mean, people saying that anxious because of the kids and everything. The reality is, people are seeing, and it's not even cities, this is in towns and villages now, the swift and rapid demographic change, which is something that is sort of accelerating to points that beyond, I think, anyone could really predict 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, you're 100% correct about AI. Mitch, what's your take on this stuff?
Yeah, I don't. there's a certain point where I don't know the containment right, like you take reform in terms of upper leadership. It's kind of like with Trump, where there's only so far Trump will go. Like, for example, you have a Trump Epstein cover up, to which point you go, okay, how much can you accept this versus how much do you just have to accept that this is just a part of the problem? Like this is a feature of what you're getting in that, Trump, because on one hand, yeah, Trump isn't on the Epstein list, because if he was, then they would have released it by now to screw him over. But he hasn't. But there must be some reasons behind that mean that Trump won't ever release it.
Oh, look, Epstein was, as many people have pointed out, he was most certainly working for Mossad, but he was probably also working for US intelligence as well, because that kind of honey trap stuff, which is very common for espionage organizations to use, is extremely useful and gives people an enormous amount of power over these powerful and rich and well-known people who used to go to Epstein Island. I mean, I think you're entirely correct, Mitch. I don't think Trump's on that list, because if he had been, the Democrats would have released it. So, for sure. So I don't think he is. But, there is other, what's the word I'm looking for? There are other elite American secrets in there that they don't want released.
Yeah, and it's like, you take Farage, how much can we trust him to actually just be right wing enough for us?
Oh, look, I don't think Farage is even as right. Donald Trump is basically a 90s Democrat, really. Right? People call him a neo-Nazi.
But the thing is,
he's probably more right wing than Nigel Farage, if you ask me.
Well, the thing about for Trump is, there are some complaints about, how many illegals are getting deported, because it's not going to be enough by the time Trump leaves, and it'll have to be. At least, with Trump, it's a matter of he doesn't lack of a will to want to deport all the illegals. There's no lack of will. There's some people saying stuff over the agricultural side. I don't know too much about that. I mean, 1 minute it's Trump got pressured. Next thing I'm hearing, how about needs to play some blinder on the whole agricultural illegal immigrants labor policy. So,
I was just before you carry on, mate. I was just going to say one thing. Come the next general election, I will probably almost certainly hold my nose and vote for Farage's reform. Not because I think he's going to change the whole nation, but just because I'd sooner they won than Labour or the so-called, in air quotes, Conservatives. That's the only reason. Unless there is something better, unless Rupert Lowe and his Restore Britain group come up with something better than that, at the moment, that's what I'm probably going to do. And I know, some of our American friends supported Trump, not because they thought Trump was their perfect candidate, but because he was a lot better than what would have been in his stead. Sorry, AI, carry on.
I'm going to head off in a minute, but I'll quickly just on Mitch's point about America and the immigration, particularly foreign labor for farms in America. That is the one area that hasn't been touched, because the biggest, or one of the top donors to the Republican Party, are those in the farming industry, and it appears there's been, particularly in the South, there has been given some special dispensation to continue having foreign labor in the farming sector, which is going to be a problem probably for Trump later on. I don't know, but yeah. I heard of Dominion Group, Dominion Society as well. they look a bit of a cross between Homeland and Restore sort of style. But yeah, particularly with but going back to the America stuff, yeah. So some on our American friends have been a bit sort of annoyed with that, but yeah, I think everyone knew Trump wasn't going to be the Caesar type figure this time. I think we knew about this probably over a year ago now, that he wasn't the Caesar. But yeah.
Yeah, I
I'm
don't disagree with you.
actually on that note, I'm going to head off now. So thanks
All
for
right,
having me
thank
on,
you
Chris.
very much for joining AI. You're always most welcome, mate. And as I said, I'll put a link to your channel in the description under the stream afterwards.
Thanks. Go well, everyone.
All right, go well, AI. Mitch, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, to me at the moment, depending what happens with Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain in the meantime, I think at the next general election, I'll probably end up voting for Reform UK, even though I don't trust Nigel Farage and I can't stand Zia Youssef. But I'd still sooner they win the election than Labour or the so-called Conservatives. I mean, what's your view, Mitch?
Same. I'm just gonna have to hold my nose and vote Reform because, well, country's a shit tip, and I hate the reasoning of, oh, I have to vote for this guy because he's always the worst. But that's democracy for you.
Yeah, it is. You do have to kind of vote for the lesser of two evils, as they might say in the Navy. But yeah, but I don't know. Someone was saying there was a big march today. I didn't see this.
Oh, I didn't see it either, so I don't know.
Who was doing that? Was that Tommy Robinson or what?
Oh, I don't know either.
I presume it wasn't Tommy Robinson because Tommy Robinson isn't even in Britain at the moment, is he?
No, it's probably in Spain or something.
Because someone attacked him and he knocked him out. So he very sensibly got out of the country because obviously the government would have used that as an excuse to put him back in prison again.
Yeah, it's apparently like Britain First was the main ones that organised it. I've got them on mute, so that's why I never heard of it.
Yeah, Britain First. It wasn't Britain First the group that the Irish woman used to lead.
Oh, that Jada Franson woman. She left a while ago, I think. Apparently claiming domestic abuse or something of Paul Golden. So.
No. Oh, okay. So it's that group who were doing the march. The Paul Golden and Jada Franson people. Okay.
Oh, you want to bet Anne-Marie Waters being the Irish woman? That's for Britain.
Yeah, that was for Britain, wasn't it? Yeah, I'm sorry, mate.
Yeah.
I get so confused with all these miniature groups. Altman is trying to come on, but his mic isn't playing ball at the moment. Hopefully you can sort it out, Altman, because we don't have many guests this evening because Aaron Hook couldn't come on because he was babysitting, and Tharium couldn't come on because he's sick. So we lost two of our regulars today.
So in the case of for Britain, I mean, we haven't been around for like 4 years because when Anne-Marie Waters, who got so blackpilled with the lockdowns that she just thought there's no saving Britain, which.
Because I know that the guy I interviewed, who used to be Jonathan Bowden's friend, Eddie Butler, he used to be the main publicity guy for Anne-Marie Waters' group, which is why they did quite well for a while because he's quite good at what he does.
Yeah. I haven't really been. I mean, in terms of like news this week, I haven't really kept up to date with much. Like I've just been looking at somewhat about Trump's visit, and he's just been playing down Starmer, like basically treating him, but essentially like a disloyal vassal or something, like just beating down on him. Which is
I liked
satisfying.
I liked the meme that I put up, the GIF. You will have seen it on the Discord, Mitch, but I found it on X where Donald Trump knocks two-tier care out, which is kind of cool. I just wish it was true.
Yeah, you have for example, Trump, he was talking about freedom of speech, and Starmer just nervously went, "Oh, we do have freedom of speech," and it wasn't very genuine, and you could just tell. I mean, you could just look at Starmer's face; he was just in. It felt like, the kind of when you pick up a pig and it squeals. That's essentially what Starmer was in that scenario. Then there was another one where I think some journalist asked Trump about like the farm taxes or something, and he said, "Oh well, we don't tax farms in America because they're cash poor but asset rich, and so on, blah blah blah." And he had Starmer right next to him, who's just like looking a bit uneasy, going, "This is just, it was just the entire thing was just Trump just beating down on Starmer indirectly or mostly indirectly." But there was one time where.
Pretty easy to do that, especially on free speech, Mitch. I mean, UK has no free speech these days.
Yeah, I mean, Starmer's entire conception of free speech is basically the Soviet way, which is, you can say whatever you like, so long as it's legal. That's...
And of course, they make more and more illegal, which means you can't, in fact, say hardly anything about anything. I mean, I believe that. On X, the British government was censoring stuff about Richard Lionheart because he was crusading, and they were claiming it was Islamophobia from like 1100.
Yeah, I'm seeing like that. Yeah, it's like the siege of Acre, where apparently because it went into some detail about what Richard did to the Muslim prisoners he took at Acre, but. Because the thing was, you had Saladin who just kept stalling on the negotiations. Richard, he's barely able to feed his own troops, let alone these Muslim prisoners. He's just getting tired of going, screw it, I'm just gonna have to kill all these prisoners because Saladin's not playing ball and I can't feed them. So, and of course Saladin, this is one thing I hate that Kingdom of Heaven film because so many people take the wrong image of Saladin.
Yeah, they think he was this nice, kind bloke, and he sure wasn't.
No, after the siege of Acre, Saladin had trouble garrisoning fortresses. From that point on, no one would want to garrison a fort because Saladin wouldn't have it back.
Yeah, he wouldn't ransom his prisoners, which was normal in the Middle Ages. But Saladin wouldn't do that. But in that awful Kingdom of Heaven film, which was historically hugely inaccurate, even the end of it when they captured Jerusalem, Saladin didn't let everyone go. The only people he let go were the people who ransomed themselves or their friends ransomed or family.
One thing that's worth noting is so you have, let's say you were a poor Christian. Apparently one thing that had to happen was a lot of young girls, a lot of young women had to disguise themselves as boys so they wouldn't get raped by the Muslims coming in.
Well, also all of the poorer people there were enslaved anyway. The end of that movie is total bullshit. So only the people who could afford, or their relatives or friends could afford to ransom, were released. Everyone else was enslaved. But they don't say that in that film because they wanted to pretend that the Christians were awful in that movie and that the Muslims were great, which was not true at all.
Yeah, I mean, there's I just started to dip into watching films of the Tudors, such as Elizabeth of the Golden Age, and then Mary Queen of Scots from 7 years ago, and it's just in the case of Mary Queen of Scots, you have David Tennant playing this guy called John Knox. And you end up sympathising more with him because he's basically just saying, "Oh, I don't like the main character because she's a woman who is our queen." That's just kind of that tells you all you need to know about film, which was you end up sympathising more with this guy who's meant to be, you know, the ignorant patriarch who loves beating down on women, because it's just like he's just telling the queen to her face who could have his head cut off at any given point. He's just saying to her, "Oh, I don't like you because you're a woman. You know, I don't trust your judgment." He just says it to her face, and I'm sort of thinking, I end up sympathising more with that character than I do with the main character. It's also another thing where, you know, the main character, Mary Queen of Scots, she was raised for the most part in France, so she wouldn't have a Scottish accent.
No, she was more French than Scottish, absolutely. Which was also true of Bonnie Prince Charlie, by the way, who also had a French accent. But anyway.
Yeah. And the other thing was, it tries to portray that Mary Queen of Scots as being like this wholesome, generous kind of woman. It's like, well, no, she got her head cut off because she kept plotting against us, and that's why she had her head cut off.
Yes.
And as that Naval history guy, what's his name, said, she was just stupid. Like, she didn't know how to play the game. Whereas, and I don't like Elizabeth either, but Elizabeth was a lot better at playing the game.
Yes, absolutely true.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of our first subject. I can't think of much other than Mr. Starmer buckling under Trump. Like, Starmer just being like a massively nervous wreck. And then you've got, on a funny note, I imagine everyone's seen that meme going about of the Japanese woman being compared to Sydney Sweeney.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yep, I've seen that.
Yeah, that's. I mean, the thing is that I end up seeing a lot more of it because I've got my VPN set to Japan, so so it's just I've got even more coverage, and it's just like every 5 seconds now on my Twitter is always just a post about this Japanese woman or Japanese media reporting it, and I just think it's not really. I don't know what more to say other than it's just completely funny how much the internet. I don't know, like this woman becomes probably the most famous Japanese woman of all time for like 5 minutes.
The only thing I will say about that before I ask Atman for his takes on some of this stuff is in Japan, what I like about Japan is they don't do any of this unisex bullshit in Japan. It's not part of their culture at all. They don't pretend that men and women are the same. And that's one thing I like about Japanese culture, I have to say.
Yeah.
Adam, did you have any takes on the stuff we've been talking about?
Can you hear me? All right.
Yeah, mate, perfectly.
Oh, nice, brilliant. I mean, we had this argument a while ago, didn't we, about Japan? What was going to happen? And as much as I didn't want to be proven right, I think we did see the start of some of the immigration stuff and the rest of it. Although it kind of looks like the government there is at least semi-sensible and is actually willing to.
They're fighting back a bit.
A mistake.
They're fighting back a bit as well, Adam. And there was a recent election there where the right wing did very well.
Well, yeah, I mean, people often like to kind of say, "Oh, the Japanese, they're a bit too soft. They're a bit too like." Japan saw when the Americans wanted to take that nuclear carrier there. When was that? That was like the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
They saw, I think it was like one of the largest protests in the West, and in the sort of in the sort of what we would call the Western world, which on some extent you could extend to Japan,
Mm-hmm.
And it actually got quite fierce in places as well. Like they do know how to kick off. It's just that they often don't have that much to kick off about. They still have problems with, like there was a guy who Semiagog interviewed on his channel a while back who was I believe was a Danish or maybe some sort of Scandinavian immigrant to Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd had like a child with a Japanese woman, and he was commenting about how like Japanese boomers can often be the same as like Western boomers, where they're just like, oh yeah, I'll be dead by then, so it doesn't matter. So there is that, but it's, I don't know, it's a hard country to get a read on, which I think is also one of the reasons why America's always had a hard time penetrating it with their propaganda.
Yeah, their culture is you can't replace Japanese culture with American culture in the same way as that's happened in Britain so much. Like American culture has just displaced a lot of British culture over the years, and some of it's been deliberate on the part of the British. I mean, but you can't really do that in Japan because their culture is so alien to the Americans.
Yeah, they have
And
had some
the
success.
languages. Yeah, some. I mean, the Japanese play baseball, and they have.
Well, we play rugby more, don't we?
Yeah, they also play rugby. Yeah, they play rugby. But they play baseball, and they have like McDonald's and stuff. But it's not the same as it is in America.
Yeah, I mean, I did some mat wrestling when I was in school back in the day, and I've actually got a bit of a soft spot for sumo wrestling.
I've watched it. Yeah, I've watched it.
It's got a beautiful sort of simplicity to it, in terms of the fact that what do you have to do to win? Well, you have to get the other guy out of the circle. You have to get his knee on the floor. It's really quite engaging. But sumo wrestling is kind of dropping off in popularity in Japan. It's kind of what would be a good comparison? I suppose that to Japan is like cricket in England today. It's a traditional national sport for that place that has sort of is just not connecting with the youth in the same way that it would have done in previous generations. And you can go. I mean, I think when we had this argument before, I think Mitch looked up the movies in cinema in Japan, and a lot of them were American films. Like they are starting to get a sort of like a foothold in there, but what that translates to in the long run, it's kind of anyone's guess.
Yeah, I follow quite a few channels on YouTube which are British and Western dudes who live in Japan, and so far as I can see, it really is very different still. Like Kentucky Fried Chicken's a thing in Japan, but the Japanese eat it at Christmas. That's when they eat.
Well, yeah,
it.
they're I think like the third capital of pizza outside of Italy.
Yeah,
I think London being the first.
But like I said, it's a tradition in Japan that you eat Kentucky Fried Chicken at Christmas because Christmas isn't very important to the Japanese, obviously.
Well, the thing is, as well as the Japanese, they indulge in foreign customs and food like a sort of curiosity. It's they're kind of a deeply autistic people in that sense, which I think is probably why a lot of people on the right tend to have a soft spot for the place.
But it's quite interesting if you watch some of these videos of like Brits and Aussies and what have you who live in Japan, and sometimes they'll film as they're traveling around the place, and it is just different. I mean, for a start, their cities are spotless. There's no litter on the floor. There's no graffiti. It's just totally different.
Till recently, but yeah.
Well, even now, it's still totally different. The Japanese may be complaining about things getting worse, but they're not getting worse by our standards, mate. Really, they're not. We'd be entirely happy if our cities looked like this. Well worth doing. It's well worth checking.
Well, I mean, you go to Bath, and people will suddenly remember what an English city should look like.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I used to like Bath, I must admit, when I spent much time in England. But there again, the last time I was in London, I just wished I hadn't have gone back there. And I was born in London.
I mean, a lot of us on the right, and I've done this too, we'll often sit here and go, oh yeah, London, shithole, this, that, and the other. There are a lot of parts, especially in North London, where you kind of get a glimpse of what London could have been, in the modern age. The few areas where whites still sort of exercise a strong amount of homogeneity, and the only reason they really do that is because of wealth, right? Because they gatekeep those communities not via race but by money.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I was saying at the start of this stream when you guys weren't here that I had an interesting day on X today because I got blocked by a South Asian Labour MP for saying that Rishi Sunak was not English, which it's not an argument to me that Rishi Sunak's not English. I mean, would he claim that Rudyard Kipling was Indian? Because obviously Rudyard Kipling was an Englishman. He wasn't an Indian. In the same way, Rishi Sunak is an Indian. He's not an Englishman.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, they can't even you would think that. I mean, if they were more honest about what they actually believed, this would be a pretty much a no-brainer to them. They would argue, and I still disagree with this, but they would argue that Rishi Sunak is British but not English, because if English is an ethnicity, but British is a nationality.
But British is also an ethnicity.
Yes, I mean, I would obviously. Yeah, I mean, as I said, I would disagree with
pointed out, the British race is quite an ancient way of referring to people.
Yeah, and of course, you could the other problem you run into with that is that well, okay, so the English, do they have a right to their homeland and freedom of association in their homeland? Well, yes. To the Scottish, yes. To the Welsh, yes. To you could even say to the Cornish and the Northern Irish, yes. So you kind of end up with well, okay, yeah. Technically, under the sort of liberal worldview, anyone could become a British citizen, but they don't then have a right or an ability to live anywhere within the British Isles, so that kind of becomes pointless anyway. But but that what I'm saying is, if they were honest, that would be the thing they would stick to, which is the sort of post-war liberal argument for that. But they can't. They in the same way. I don't know if you remember, there was this case a while back where a police officer spurged out a Tesco's in Essex because he went down I think it was the feminine hygiene aisle, and he was like, "Oh, feminine, not all people that get periods are females." He did the whole trans thing, and which is of course ridiculous, because even if you actually stuck to their logic, as they claim in arguments when they discuss these things, they would say that that female and male are sex distinctions, but gender is a different thing. It's a social construct. But they play fast and loose, and they flip flop around, and they do the same with the ethnicity and the race argument. One minute they say, "Oh, it's a British citizen," and then the next minute, Axel Rudikabana's Welsh. Rishi Sunak's English, apparently. And ethnicity is real if you're talking about a brown person, but not if you're talking about a white person. So
hypocrites.
Yeah,
they're absolute hypocrites. But I mean, unless people are willing to turn around and say that Rudyard Kipling was an Indian because he was born in India, Rishi Sunak's not English and not British. He's an Indian. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I wouldn't say
in the same way that Rudyard Kipling was an Englishman who was born in India. It's just craziness. These people are hypocrites.
You do have to be careful about asking that question, though, because a lot of our enemies they're idiots on a level of which I just wouldn't consider possible. There was a guy, it might have been No Chance, the Scotsman, might have been someone else. It was someone in the sort of like the PA sphere from a while back, who I don't think's with PA now, and they got a guy on who was like one of these sort of football Twitter guys who actually come on his stream because he'd had an argument with him on Twitter, and the guy argued with him, and he said to him, like, "Do you see Rudyard Kipling as Indian?" And the guy's just like, "Yes," like completely unapologetically, like, "No."
My God, how ridiculous!
But this is the thing: if you ask them the question, they will, without any shame, answer it in the direction that they think scores them a win, rather than anything that was consistent with anything they said earlier or anything they actually believe.
Oh man, it's just so crazy. Mitch, anything to say about this stuff?
I'd say with Japan, it's a matter of like they're very insular people of it. It's one thing where on one hand they will get into. I've noticed this a lot more, and I commented it about in the Discord, where if you get an American move over to Japan, the American can spend decades there and he won't ever fit in, because whereas if you get an Englishman who goes over to Japan, he goes native. Like you got guys like William Adams, but I can think of like Victorian travelers who went to Japan, and after like a few years in Japan, they just go native. In a way, Americans just, but that doesn't happen with Americans. So that's the main thing. The main thing is like Japan is formulated on similar principles to England, which is England is a home of Anglo-Saxons, in the same way that Japan is a home of the Japanese, or as they call themselves, Yamato, like in an ethnic way.
Mm.
And also,
the Americans have always had a fairly unpleasant relationship with Japan. I mean, don't forget, it was the American Navy that forcibly made Japan open up to the world, back in the 1850s. So America and Japan have never had a very good relationship, whereas quite early on, the Japanese and the British became friendly, and the Japanese Navy to some degree was modelled on the Royal Navy, and we built a lot of their warships, and indeed they were the first major British ally in 1902. Long before we were allies with anybody else, in terms of in the 19th and early 20th century, Japan was that was the only alliance that the excellent Lord Salisbury ever agreed with.
Yeah, and it's the thing about Japan is that since the end of Second World War, I think there's only been like 5 times they've voted out a government. Basically, like they're very resistant to change, so that's why it takes so long for the Gay to turn Japan really good. Because it's like, for example, it was only like 2023, like a year and a half or so ago, where Japan started taking in loads a lot more Vietnamese, Nepalese, and other third world migrants from that neck of the woods because of massive pressure from the West. Because you got a factor. At the time, we were having a Boris wave, and Canada had a similar thing, and America did a lot of immigration and so on. There was a lot of pressure on Japan to say, okay, we can't have you looking like a homogeneous paradise compared to us. We will want you to have more immigration. And I think the Prime Minister's name was Ishiba, who I don't know what's going to happen to him as a result of his elections, where his party, the Liberal Democrat Party, got screwed. But the Liberal Democrat Party, by the way, that's Shinzo Abe's party.
Mm-hmm.
But since Shinzo Abe got killed, the party has been becoming a lot more liberal, become a lot more centrist.
That makes sense. I will just say to people in the chat, guys, if you want to support the channel, please do hit the like button. It really does help. Doesn't cost you anything. Takes about half a second. Also, if you want to support the channel or you want to ask a super chat question, which we will address towards the end of the stream, you can do so via Entropy, and that link is pinned at the top of the chat. That's my shilling bit done. So yeah, I don't know. I quite like Japan.
Do you not think that the British Japanese alliance was a bit of an odd one though? Because
no, I think
obviously
it was perfect for Britain.
Geostrategically, I suppose, but like to the same extent, like obviously because of the distance, most British people had no real experience with the Japanese, and as soon as we did, which was on the wrong side of them in World War II, like most British people found the Japanese to be almost quite a barbarous people, and they didn't like them.
Couple of things with that, Adam, and I mean, and I'm going to have to get into a bit of history, but first of all, the reason Britain and Japan had that alliance was because Britain basically the Japanese Navy was modelled to a large degree on the Royal Navy in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Japanese officers used to come across and serve on Royal Navy ships and what have you. We trained quite a lot of their early officers. We also built most of their warships. Even in World War II, there were Japanese battleships that had been built in England. And strategically, it served Britain really well because it meant that Britain had a powerful naval ally on the far side of the world, which meant we didn't have to keep so many British warships in that part of the world. So, for example, in World War One, Japanese warships escorted Australian and New Zealand soldiers to the Middle East. The Japanese also sent squadrons of destroyers to help the Royal Navy in the Mediterranean. And it was also a good alliance because it didn't require you to go to war if the other country was only fighting one other enemy. So, for example, when Japan was fighting Russia in the Russo-Japanese War, 1904, Britain didn't have to go to war in that instance. But if Russia's ally France had declared war on Japan as well, then Britain would have had to have gone to war on Japan's side, and that would have suited Britain just fine because we would have sunk the French fleet in the same way that the Japanese sank the Russian fleet. So, and the Royal Navy was a hell of a lot bigger than the French, the Russians, or the Japanese. In fact, they were probably bigger than all of them. But anyway, it served Britain very well. And one of the things you have to realize is that when Britain abandoned that alliance in 1922, at the behest of America, of course, because the Americans made it a stipulation in the Washington Naval Treaty, the Japanese were rightly mortally offended. They didn't like it at all. And also, don't forget, Britain got nothing out of the Washington Naval Treaty. We didn't get an American alliance to replace it.
No.
If it had been me, if I'd have been the British government, I would never have signed the Washington Naval Treaty. It was.
We've talked at this at end, but I still can't really get my head around why.
Because it meant
why we went into this sort of deal that America was largely calling the shots on. Not entirely, but
I see.
Definitely more so than they deserve to.
Yeah, the Washington Naval Treaty was insane from Britain's point of view. Because the American Congress in no way would have authorized the American Navy to build as many ships as they would have needed to actually outbuild Britain. Because in 1922, Britain could still build warships more quickly than the Americans, and we probably had more shipyards than they did.
I'm sure as well Hitchens in his Phony Victory quotes a few American politicians, or actually I think admirals, who were complaining even sort of in the sort of early days of America entering World War II, that the British Navy was still sort of massively outpacing the US Navy, and they didn't like it. Their main complaint was that our ships were never down for too long, so we always ended up sort of punching above our weight, even in reference to naval tonnage. Because I think they made a comment like, if a Royal Navy warship gets shelled, they get the brooms out and it's back on the sea.
This was our aircraft carriers when we were off Japan in 1945, when the British Pacific Fleet was fighting alongside the Americans. And when a British carrier got hit by a Japanese kamikaze aircraft, a suicide aircraft, the British ships had armored flight decks, and so the Japanese aircraft would basically bounce off and would make a dent and probably kill some people, particularly if it set aircraft on fire and so on. But it wouldn't damage the ship much. Whereas if they hit an American aircraft carrier, which in those days did not have armored flight decks, they had wooden decks basically, the American ship would be back to Pearl Harbor for 6 months refit, basically.
Yeah,
but
that's
just
what
we
were better at
talking
conducting sea repairs as well, and stuff like that was, I think, what they were annoyed about. I mean, which to be honest, was like long-standing naval tradition for us anyway. But
it was only in 1943 that the American Navy overtook the Royal Navy as the world's largest navy. It was only early 1943 was when that happened. But if Britain hadn't have signed the Washington Naval Treaty in 1922, I don't know what would have happened, because the Royal Navy had something like 45 dreadnoughts, I think, at the end of World War One. Certainly 40. and that was twice as many as the Americans. So it would have taken.
I mean, some people make the
you know,
argument that we wanted to sign up to it because we didn't want to have to pay to sort of build our navy back up. But I don't know. I
Navy
always
was
find those sorts
already
of
large,
arguments.
and
Yeah, I always
Navy
find those
was
sorts of
already
arguments
huge.
to be kind of horseshit, because people make the same arguments about like Germany after World War One, but like Germany was absolutely capable of squaring its own books. It was through pure political choice that they didn't.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely true. Absolutely true. Steve
and
is
you
saying
kind of
in
see this
the
all the time.
Steve is saying in the chat that the armored flight decks were a trade-off of aircraft carrying capacity. Up to a point, Steve, that's true. But actually, if you look at the latest Royal Navy armored deck carriers off Japan, the latest, which was a subclass of 2 ships, could actually carry about 80 aircraft when they had a deck park. And it's also worth noting that after World War II, the Americans went over to armored flight deck carriers themselves. So, it's not really trade-off for aircraft carrying capacity, because if you build your ship large enough, you can have an armored flight deck and have a lot of aircraft, which is what the Americans do today.
Was this why in the post-war years when we had things like the Harrier, not immediate post-war, but much later, is this why so many of our aircraft carriers were so dependent on that design? But to the point that when they got rid of the when they got rid of the Harrier, all those aircraft carriers became almost entirely obsolete.
No, not really. And don't forget the Queen Elizabeth class that we have now, the 2 ships we've got now that we paid for 3 ships, but only got 2 because the British government built them so slowly. They have to use STOVL aircraft, short takeoff and vertical landing aircraft.
Which we can't seem to design or build domestically, which is another sort of
No, we're using the American F-35B, but we don't have many of them. Britain's only bought 47 of them. Sorry, 48, but we lost one in an accident, which was due to the RAF not doing their job properly. But anyway, but yeah, the British carriers didn't have armoured flight decks after the old Ark Royal, which was retired in 1978. That was the last proper British carrier with cats and traps, catapults and traps to stop the aircraft when it landed. There was talk at one stage of converting the Queen Elizabeth class to that, and supposedly you could do so. But British aircraft, the one major British defence company wanted to charge billions to do it, so the government decided not to. I still think at some stage they might, but it'll be very expensive, and it'll mean you won't have a warship for about a year while you're doing it. But yeah, no, that's not to do with the armoured flight decks. No, what the armoured flight decks did mean was that it was more difficult to modernise British carriers after World War II. Like they did modernise HMS Victorious, but they spent an absolute fortune on it. It would have been cheaper to build a new ship. That made that quite difficult.
Is this why so many of them ended up becoming helicopter carriers?
No,
not so many of them.
No, it was to let you understand, Admin, in the 1960s, the late 1960s and early 1970s, Britain had 5 aircraft carriers. We had Ark Royal and Eagle, who were sister ships, Hermes and Centaur, who were sister ships, and Victorious, which was the one I was just talking about that got modernized. And we also had 2 helicopter carriers, Bulwark and Albion. Not the ships that the Labour Party has just decided we're going to scrap and sell to Brazil, but earlier carriers. So we actually had 7 carriers, 2 of which were helicopter carriers. So but the Royal Navy is tiny compared to what it used to be.
Yeah.
Even in 1982, the Royal Navy had 2 aircraft carriers, with 2 more being built. There were 2 more small Invincible class carriers. But we also had 70 frigates and destroyers and about 12 SSNs, which are hunter-killer nuclear submarines. Plus, we had conventional submarines back then as well. Now, the Royal Navy has the 2 aircraft carriers, which we can only crew one at a time, pretty much. One of which is in the Pacific at the moment. We have a whole 14 frigates and destroyers. 14 is a maximum figure. It actually could be less than that now. And we've got 6, which will eventually rise to 7 SSNs. The Royal Navy is a shadow of what it used to be. And if you'd have gone back to the 1970s when we had 5 aircraft carriers and 2 helicopter carriers, the Royal Navy would have had probably 100 frigates and destroyers at that stage. No, it's just it's totally different. It's like it's a shadow compared to what it was then. I've put Aaron Hook's comment up there. Aaron couldn't join us this evening because he's babysitting for a relative. So
yeah, this is basically what I was saying earlier. I understand why they weren't happy about it, especially like the average German in the street. But like the German state could have covered the post-war the post-war concessions. It's not to say we probably should have put as much on them, but they could have covered them. And it was entirely sort of post-war liberal government decisions that created that made those problems worse than they had to be, and extended them for as long as they did. One of the things I love to bring up when you get like lefties also banging on about Haiti and like the sanctions against Haiti, like per capita, Germany had to pay off more just from World War I alone than Haiti did, and the German state has covered all of that sort of 100 years after that conflict. And it took Haiti how long? I'm pretty sure it's still going.
Absolutely correct. I mean, this idea that the Treaty of Versailles was like this really vile thing on the Germans, we probably were a bit harsh, or actually it was the French mostly were a bit harsh, but it wasn't as bad as is sometimes made out.
There were worse things done to the Germans, specifically by the French in the immediate post-war years. Like the blackening of the Rhine and stuff like that. That I would say were a lot worse than the stuff that came out of Versailles.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with any of that. I would also just as a final thought on the aircraft carrier thing. One of the reasons Britain had armoured flight deck carriers in World War II was that the Royal Navy knew they would have to operate in the Mediterranean, which is a relatively confined inland sea, where your carriers are going to get hit by the enemy air force. And if they hadn't have been armoured, we would have lost ships. And the final thing I'll say about it is this. When the Americans were actually planning on invading Japan, before the atom bombs, like say had the atom bombs not worked, the Americans would have invaded Japan and Britain would have joined in with them. Like Britain was going to use about 4 British and Commonwealth divisions to invade Japan. And the American admirals thought that if Britain and America had to invade Japan, after about a month, it would have mainly only been the British carriers that would have still been operating because they had armoured flight decks against the Japanese kamikazes. So
although Japan was already talking about drawing up a surrender.
Yes, they were.
Prior to the bombs, but
yes,
which is quite a dark. I think. Yeah, go on, Mitch.
I was just saying one thing because I saw I think it's Imperial War Museum. They were doing a video saying, was it the atom bombs or the Soviet invasion of Manchuria that got the Japanese to quit? Even when Hirohito was planning on, accepting our terms, you had the army try to coup. Army tried to get rid of them.
They did.
The Ryujo incident or something like that, I think it was called. The only reason Japan was able to surrender was because that plot had failed. So even with the atom bombs and the Soviet invasion of Manchuria, plenty of Japanese officers were just they just wanted to go in a blaze of glory. still.
Yeah, that's true. It's also worth mentioning something else that goes back to something that Adam was talking about earlier. In World War one of the things the Japanese did was they took the German Chinese naval base of Tsingtao, and they captured a lot of German soldiers there. The German soldiers went home in 1918. This is the First World War I'm talking about here. The German soldiers were sent home in 1918 from Japanese prisoner of war camps, heavier than when they were captured. The Japanese in World War One did not mistreat the German prisoners in the least degree.
Yeah,
all this Bushido stuff, and the atrocities that the Japanese committed against prisoners of war and what have you in World War Two was because of particular types of government that Japan had at that time. And that was not the same sort of Japanese government as Britain was dealing with when we were allied with Japan.
Yeah, the thing about because the thing was, up until the Anglo-Japanese alliance being scrapped, the Japanese are very Anglophilic, like very.
Yeah.
For example, there was a Japanese survivor of the Titanic who he was socially shamed for the rest of his life, going, "How dare you survive and make us Japanese look like cowards in front of the English?" That was kind of like the Japanese perception. They thought of us as big. I think there's I keep seeing it and I don't know who it's from, but basically this Japanese fella, he said he sponsored a lot of McDonald's and other Western food brands getting into Japan because basically you got facts of that up until the Meiji period when Japanese started sending some of their experts to the West to learn off us. Japanese diet doesn't include meat. They only eat really rice and seafood. So when you have these Japanese, like for example, the Japanese admiral Togo Heiichiro, who commanded the Japanese fleet at Tsushima, he comes over to Britain and he sees meat sold for the first time. Like the first time he really sees stuff like steak and whatnot, and like beef, like is in when he's visiting Britain. And also another thing was that same Japanese admiral, he after the Battle of Tsushima, he said, "Oh, I am the reincarnation of Horatio Nelson." So that's kind of like the Japanese.
You can still see that in their culture now, though. Like I know there's a lot of talk in our circles about like how subversive anime is, but some anime is rife with this stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's not all subversive, and also a lot of people confuse. There are various forms of Japanese cartoons, shall we say, and I'm not an expert on this at all, but there are some which are out and out porn, and there are others which are not that at all. And anime,
they've got lots of genres and subcategories that all have their own sort of Japanese names. I don't know what any of them mean, but we had a guy on the show a while back on this very stream, George, if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
He said to me, I think on the stream, he was like, "Oh, you should watch Attack on Titan because it has." I think he said like, we'll say it has nationalist themes. So I went and watched it. It's probably people in stream that in chat know what this is. And they're probably thinking, "Oh God, here we go." But I went and watched it, and I went at first. I was like, "Oh yeah, a bit of militarism, bit of nationalism. Yeah, I get it." And then by the time it rolls around to like I think the end of the third season, I was like, "Holy shit! This is literally white nationalist propaganda." Like,
absolutely. Yeah. So some
and
Japanese
all the characters have like a mixture of
based.
Anglo and German names as well. It's
Some Japanese cartoons are very based. Sorry, Mitch, carry on, man.
I remember seeing like one where it was it's basically like a Sengoku Jidai period of Japan, but with like female characters, and one character, Oda Nobunaga, in a female form, Oda Nobunaga, and it's like basically a blonde woman. And instead of thinking it's meant to be like a female version of like a famous Japanese warlord, it'd be like let's say us making a cartoon where like Oliver Cromwell was a Japanese woman. That's kind of like how it would be. So
I remember they spurged out when they did the live action Ghost in a Shell film with Scarlett Johansson, and there was
She
all
doesn't
these
like the male gaze now, though, Adam, apparently.
no, but there was all these like Asian leftists, American Asian leftists that were like, oh, but they're culturally appropriate, and it's like, Jesus, have you seen the Ghost
Yeah.
in the Shell anime? Like it, that
I have
they're
actually
it's all
seen
white
the anime
people.
of that. Yes, I've seen the anime of
Yeah.
that, actually. It really doesn't make any difference.
No.
Yeah, it's the other thing is yeah, as I said, like there's this Japanese fella who sponsored a lot of like McDonald's and KFC and whatnot, entering into the Japanese like food scene, because he said, well, if we eat the same food as white people do, then we'll grow taller and have bigger boobs, basically. It's actually true, boys. That's actually going up. Like both like the Japanese people's heights have been going up like the past 80 years. Because it's like back in World War II, the average height was like 5'4" for blokes, whereas nowadays it's like 5'8" for blokes, and for women it's also gone up. And then also, for Japanese women have also got bigger tits than they did 100 years ago. So it's kind of working.
No one is going to complain about that, I'm sure. But anyway, but yeah, no, I find that Scarlett Johansson thing so funny, is because like that's what made her all her money, basically, is her looks. And now, because she's, I don't know, 42 or whatever she is, she doesn't like that anymore. Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah, the other funny thing was, I saw that a lot of these like feminists going, oh well, so Tom Brady, who's like, I think he's like 45, he's dating Sydney Sweeney, who's like 27, and these feminists saying, oh, he's a pervert because he's dating a woman. I don't get it either, because it's like, what, he's 45.
27 is an adult, What were they trying to say? She's a little girl when she's 27? She's nearly bloody 30. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's like, apparently, and there's rumors flying around that Sydney Sweeney is like a member of the Republican Party in America.
Oh my God, that'd be disgusting, wouldn't it? I mean, look, I just to briefly address this Sydney Sweeney thing. It's just craziness. They get a cute blonde chick with big tits to advertise their product. Well, so, it's just craziness. I did see a thread on X where people were asking to rate her, and I said she was a 8+. I don't know what you guys think. I think Sydney Sweeney's probably an 8+.
She's got a bit of dirt face, but
she's got like dead-looking eyes at times. But I mean, compared to what we've had to suffer with that.
Yeah, take the whole package, Mitch. Take the whole package, not just the face.
Well, like you compare Sydney Sweeney, for example, to our potato-faced woman from The Last of Us. I mean, I'd go Sydney Sweeney any day of the week.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Like I said, in my personal 0 to 10 rating, she's an 8+, definitely. Aaron Hook is saying, going by the old rule of half your age plus 7, Sydney Sweeney's the right age bracket for Brady. I mean, also, Aaron, as you all know, because Aaron's into his history and his 19th century history, it was perfectly normal in the 19th century for a bloke in his 40s to marry a woman in her 20s. It was very common. Particularly if you were, say, a soldier or Royal Navy officer. You weren't really supposed to marry when you were a lieutenant because you couldn't afford it, So you waited until you became a captain or a major until you got married. And so it was very, very common that a bloke of like 42 or 43 would marry a chick of like 23 or 25. Very common.
Yeah, there's a lot of sort of unmarried harridans that are sort of around my age to a bit like a decade older that are currently spurging out about sort of younger, like 20-somethings dating men in their 30s, and it's like, they're talking about this new phenomenon. Common. It's like that's not a new phenomenon. That's pretty typical. There were lots of women who I knew from school who in their early 20s, when we were about the same age, were dating guys that were like 10 years older and getting married to some of them and having kids and the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, look, the love of my life was 12 years younger than I was. So, I mean, it was a big deal. It doesn't matter. I mean, I can understand this if someone is, if the guy is like 30 and he's going out with a 17-year-old, yeah, I can see people complaining about that. But if a woman is 25, she can go out with who she likes, basically.
Yeah, one of my exes, her father was 20 years older than her mother. Yeah, they had a great and happy marriage. He actually passed away recently, though. Yeah, God bless him. But
I don't understand people complaining about that. I really don't. I mean, once you get to, I don't know, 21 or thereabouts, you're an adult, and you should be able to do what you want, really, as far as I'm concerned. You know.
Well, on the can we talk about something else a little different? Unless you wanted to carry on about the Sydney Sweeney thing, but
No, go for it.
Did you want to talk about this? I mean, we've talked about this last week. The whole the age protection thing, this new law that's coming. So this is for people under the age of 18 primarily, except that aren't they reducing, or aren't they looking at reducing the voting age to below 18?
They want to make it 16.
So what, they're going to enfranchise an age cohort of people that they've just disenfranchised from the internet?
Yes, that's exactly what they want to do.
Like an entirely different, essentially, internet feed to the rest of us.
But don't you think they're doing that on purpose, Alman? Because, the more ignorant you can keep those people, the more likely they are to fall for the cons of the so-called British elites, in the Labour Party and also the, in air quotes, Conservative Party.
Well, so I mean, I watched, I think the AA video on he did a video recently on the whole age verification thing, and he said, I mean, this is like a long running position of his, but he said something like, oh, is the public just gonna take this? Are they gonna just eat it? And it's like, well, they haven't really got a choice. That's kind of the issue with these sorts of things.
Yeah.
But it's more about how people perceive it, and it's like at a time where the establishment is running around screaming misinformation because they constantly keep creating these vacuums of information and then kicking off because people speculate to try and fill in the gaps because the government just doesn't tell you anything. I think Dan was complaining about this on the Lotus recently, that the government literally just tells you nothing about what's going on at any time. Mm-hmm. And their answer to this is to expand those vacuums of information to include entire age groups who they're also giving the vote to. And they think that these people aren't also just going to speculate and try and grab the tidbits of information they can get and draw pictures from it that the government isn't going to like. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Is there any strategy to any of this? I know there's a lot of people in our sort of neck of the political divide that like to talk about how the regime's constantly playing 4D chess against us. I'll be honest, this just seems like a room full of retarded monkeys just throwing shit at all the walls, and I agree. None of them have any idea about what any of this is actually going to do long term.
I think they're flailing around, Armin. That's what I think they're doing. They know that their time is coming to an end, and they're flailing around desperately to try and find something.
It's like because they came out recently and they said that interns for the civil service were only going to be from people of working class backgrounds.
By which they mean immigrants, of course.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, of course, is that I don't know if you guys have spoken about this already before I came on.
No.
But I've actually got a little chart. Where is it? I saved it to my phone. I've got a little chart of what they consider some of these working class occupations. So basically, what did your parents do when you were 14, right? And this is how they're going to grade it. So according to them, lower working class, cleaner, porter, waiter, labourer, refuse collector, binman, bricklayer, right? I think bricklayers are still pretty well paid, but
bricklayers
I suppose they're like
last time I checked.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite as good as it used to be, but they still get. I still hear of some people that get paid by the brick. So, and then you got upper working class, right? Foreman, mechanic, electrician, train driver, printer, shop assistant, traffic warden, housekeeper, farm worker. Now, okay, I get some of those, but like electrician, train
Farm worker,
driver,
farm worker.
really?
Farm workers are not well paid, or at least they weren't last time I checked. But
Yeah, they're usually slightly above minimum wage now, but only slightly. But like, so, but the thing is, right? They've listed nurse as like professional and managerial.
nurse.
It's literally in the same cohort as doctor.
Oh, for God's sake.
Train drivers are paid more than nurses. I think train drivers are paid over double what nurses are.
That wouldn't surprise me, yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah, nurses get paid
electricians are paid
28
more.
grand or something like that, like 28, 30
Yeah.
grand, something like that.
Yeah, it's
I don't know. Like I said, Adam, and the one thing I can guarantee you is when they say they want more civil servants to come from the working classes, it's because they're not allowed to say immigrants. That's what they
well,
mean.
yeah. I mean, I did wonder that because, of course, it's because of course it's where the civil service is, right? The only working class people that live within any sort of commuting distance of the civil service, any practical commuting distance for an internship, are going to be people living in social housing in London, which, you know, we all know they're going to be like, you know, those types of people. But the thing is, okay, so you kind of consider that, but then it's like, what about the foreign nurses that they're always banging on about? So their kids aren't going to be able to get jobs in this.
But also,
So it's
Adam,
like,
just as an aside on that one, you I'm sure would have seen as I did on X a few weeks ago now, where a very pretty, by the way, British nurse was complaining that she couldn't get a job in a British hospital because of all the overseas nurses.
Yeah. Well, there's actually
there was that guy on Twitter, wasn't there? Like, come say, there was that guy on Twitter going, "Oh well, if you can't get a job working in NHS, then probably you're just not properly qualified." And I'm just sitting there thinking, yeah, I think you replied to him. I think, or something. Basically, everyone knows the BMA, like the British Medical Association, literally screws the playing field for actual British people.
Yeah, no, totally agree.
Well, I mean,
totally
there's actually a facility in the NHS whereby if there are two people applying for the job, and they actually say this on the job adverts, I still get like lefties on Twitter and elsewhere going like, "What do you mean DEI? You've made this up?" And it's like, you can literally go on Indeed, right? Look up NHS jobs at any level, and there is a spiel in the job advert. Anyone can go and find it, and it will say like, if two people apply, we're an equal opportunities employer. If two people apply that are equally qualified, we'll choose the non-white person. It says that. It's and actually there's a facility in the NHS whereby if you do still hire a white guy, you'll get, there's actually a guy who was a counsellor in Rotherham that declined to have inquiries back in the day into grooming gangs, who's Pakistani. And he basically had to leave the job disgraced because, like, people, obviously when a lot of this started to come to light, people really kicked off. He became one of these heads of a diversity department in the NHS for that region. So it's basically someone like him sending over some snotty email to the hirer saying, "Why did you hire a white person? Was there not a brown person available for that job?" Like, so, you know, it's like, and I think it was like 2016. I think there was nearly 800 grade A students that got turned down for training to be doctors and nurses in the UK. Yeah, there's literally hundreds of grade A students every year that get turned down for this because of the various caps.
What a surprise! And yet we have to, the same people who do this, like Labour politicians and various civil servants, will turn around and say, "Oh, but we have to bring in all these people from the third world because we need them for the NHS." But it's just bullshit, as you're saying, Alan, because they won't take on white people.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's like, I mean, as Aaron Hook says in the chat, people on our side would be better served thinking of the regime as a room temperature IQ workers pulling the levers of a machine that's no longer working, rather than seeing them as chess grandmasters. Like, I do, like, because it's like, even this, like, you know, we're sitting here thinking, well, this is to fill the civil service with foreigners, but it doesn't even do that job very well because of the way they've structured it. So it's like, I remember one of the Tory boys a while ago, like taking the piss out of someone on our side of things, saying, "Oh, you're making out as if these people are all morons in the establishment, but how is it that they hold power over you if they're all stupid?" It's like, because they inherited a system that was built by people who were actually quite competent. The system was first built by British people, and then it was built by evil white leftists who were at least competent in their evilness, and now those people have handed it off to increasingly more degenerate groups of people as time's gone by, who pose less and less of a risk to them, until we've ended up with this group, this bunch that we must
who are
suffer.
a joke. Who are a
Yeah.
joke. I mean, you look at Starmer and the rest of the Labour cabinet. I mean, David Lammy. All you got to do for David Lammy is go and look up David Lammy on Celebrity Mastermind on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
This guy is supposed to be our foreign secretary, and I'm not joking. I would have done better than he did on that show when I was 10.
I mean, the shocking
Without
thing about
any
him
doubt.
is he might actually be above average IQ for a Ugandan. But that isn't saying much when you put him in Britain.
Jesus Christ. The guy's a bad joke. I mean,
Yeah.
apart from the fact he's anti-British, of course, but
Yeah.
we've got an anti-British foreign secretary. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah.
But we've got an anti-British government. I mean, in terms of the real Anglo-Celtic white British people, they're anti-British, the whole lot of them. And so-called conservatives are no better. Although I did notice that apparently Badenoch doesn't consider herself a Nigerian.
Well, yeah.
He now says
now.
trans-British now or something.
No. Jesus. People are saying that her days are really numbered now. They're saying that the walls are closing in on her.
Long.
Right.
Yeah, she won't last long.
But who are they going to put in cleverly?
I don't know, mate. I mean, the point is, at the moment, the Conservatives, like the people who run the Conservative Party, they just want to stay quiet because there's no purpose in them doing anything at the moment, because Labour are making such a mess. They don't need to do anything, really. And also, they're watching what's happening with Farage and Zia Youssef and Reform UK. One thing I did want to say actually is I'm coming to the conclusion that anything with UK in its title makes me deeply suspicious these days.
Yeah, and it's the thing about this Labour government these days is it's a zombie government. There's nothing they've got any authority with other than just carrying on with more immigration, more taxes, and
more migrant hotels in every single part of the country, covering up more and more so-called grooming gangs.
Yeah, it's you've got, for example, like when Starmer tried to cover welfare bill, basically because we've got a welfare state that is exploding, not now thanks to the Boris wave and so on. Starmer couldn't even get his own party to agree with that, and it's just a matter of he's got no real authority now.
But who are they going to replace him with? Angela Rayner?
I think they would be stupid to replace him, though, because largely from Labour backbenchers to everything else, they're just getting what they want. Labour is just steamrolling everything.
They're doing a great deal of damage to the country, but there's no way of removing them, sadly.
No, which I know a lot of people like Rupert Lowe and that get quite upset about that sort of thing and say, "Oh, Britain's days are numbered. We need to act now." And it's like, well, to be fair, I mean, this is going to sound really fierce. Like, Britain, as we remember it, was probably already beyond saving. It was always going to be the case that we were just going to have to make something new that just as closely resembled old Britain as we could get away with.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Well, yeah, because it's like even if you look at like the people, like I'm very white pilled about like British people still. I don't really like to buy into this sort of negativity that people have. I mean, I have some general reservations about like human nature generally, and the way and how that sort of goes against what liberals might claim. But I generally still think that British people have a lot of fight and a lot of ability in them. But they're sort of all bought in on the sort of like the postmodern irony of everything. And that's
Yeah.
like if you wanted to, you couldn't just switch back to being old Britain because they're missing that sort of level of authenticity or that level of
Well, where are you gonna take it, Armin? I mean, you can't go back to the I hear this all the time. People say they want to go back to the 1990s. You know, you can't do that. You know, and the 1990s weren't that great anyway. You know,
no,
it's like
they were just better compared to this.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm old enough that I can remember the 1970s. They weren't that great either, to be honest with you. It's like you've got to go back a long way before that.
I mean, a big hallmark for me is that book, the Daring Book for Boys. I don't know if anyone remembers that. It was sort of around in the early 2000s. I think it might have been like 2006, maybe. And that you used to see that in like the Waterstones window, right? And that was sort of like the last of like genuinely authentic English culture that you could see, that you could buy. It was in a shop window, right? And that's like when people think back to the 90s and they think how culturally strong it was just that. It was like the fag ashes of an actual great culture. And it was just, you'd find that little ember still in there, and it was like you'd struck gold. And it did feel great, but you know,
when I was a kid, in the 70s, right, I was reading books from the 1950s and books from the 1920s, and indeed books from the 1890s. You know, it's always been that way since the war, pretty much. You know, the country has just got worse and worse decade by decade since World War II. There's no way of arguing against that, to be honest.
Yeah.
We got a bit of material prosperity in the 1950s and the early part of the 1960s. And of course, people go on about the Beatles and all this bullshit. But really, the country has got worse and worse every decade since World War II, at least. And I think you could argue in many respects that Britain has got worse and worse since 1900 every decade. You know, and you're correct. You can't turn the clock back a bit. You've got to really redo it.
There needs to be a sort of spiritual revival. Maybe not. I mean, obviously I'm a Christian, but some people get a bit worked up about that. But even if you're like a complete atheist, right, that you have to accept that there's like that your people have a spirit, and that needs to be revived, if nothing else.
I agree.
And I don't know how to do that. I've got no answer for that. But
I put a post up on X earlier today, and it's a picture someone sent me of the British Empire as height. And it's worth looking at, because this is like these. I don't like to say Britain is little islands, because it's not actually. Britain's about the 8th or 9th biggest island in the world. It's quite a big island, actually. But anyway, it's still a fairly small part of the globe. And we used to run a third of it. A third of the whole planet was run by the Brits. And that was about a quarter of all the world's population was under the Union flag. When
could it be done today?
Not today. I don't think, no, because of technology and what have you. But what I would say is that when the British people have confidence in themselves and don't give a shit about other people's opinions, we can do pretty damn well. Britain, because
I mean,
I think part of this reset is we've got to do these deportations that people speak about.
Yeah.
You know, that's going to be part of the reset. Britain has got to be no more Mr. Nice Guy. Sorry, if you are not British and you don't fit into the country, out.
Yeah,
That's
because I
got
was
to be what Britain does.
before I came up to go on stream, to try and come on stream. It took me like, I think it was like 45 minutes of pissing around with my headset. But I was waxing the chain on my bicycle, and I was listening to Carl Benjamin, and he was talking about it was one of his Sargon Daily ones, I think, and he was talking about the cost of keeping foreign prisoners, and he was saying that it would almost be cheaper to double the size of the British army and go and colonize Eritrea and,
Yeah.
and Somalia and Ethiopia. And I was wondering, because we were talking about Japan earlier, I was wondering about, like, could the Japanese become the regional hegemon again in Asia with China?
That is possible, actually, and I would just say that the Japanese naval self-defense force, or maritime self-defense force, I think it's really officially called, which is the Japanese Navy. That is actually about twice the size of the Royal Navy these days.
Mm.
And they have four aircraft carriers.
It's shocking, isn't it?
And they have 4 aircraft carriers. None of them are as big as Queen Elizabeth and Prince of Wales, but they have 4 of them. The only thing they don't have is nuclear-powered hunter-killer submarines, because Japan doesn't have nuclear weapons of any sort. But their navy, in terms of destroyers and frigates and what have you, is about twice the size of the Royal Navy. And unlike the Royal Navy, they don't try and operate all around the world.
Mm.
So in their own region, yes, they could become quite powerful. If the Japanese ever get rid of that clause in their constitution, which
that
the
Article
Americans,
7 or something like that.
Yeah, if they ever get rid of that, and they have moved towards this, they could absolutely do. They could absolutely become a very powerful regional hegemon, and they have the reason to do so, in that the Chinese hate their guts and always have. So, you know. And
yeah, when I was saying about
people will say that China hates Japan because of the Chino-Japanese War in the 1930s. China and Japan have always hated each other. It goes back a long, long way further than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, because the thing is, like, so, like, yeah, you're talking about 1,500 years ago. At the time when we had, for example, Alpha Brigades, you know, the Japanese, for example, they would design their capital city along the same lines as Beijing, or, well, not Beijing, it would be another city. Yeah. But yeah, basically, it'd be designed according to Chinese styles. But then Chinese started persecuting Buddhism, but Japanese, this is when we go isolationist for the first time. And because the thing is, in Japan, they say Emperor of Heaven, which to the Chinese is an insult, because the Emperor is the son of heaven. But like, but yeah, the Japanese and Chinese have always disliked one another. It's like it's like even though it's like you can like find like some bits of Japan where some of their folklore, like some of their castles, are named after like Chinese mountains or whatever. But then once you have the century of humiliation, the Japanese just start hating the Chinese on a racial level, and that's where you get the 1930s and 40s in terms of the atrocities coming in.
And
also,
the Chinese have always been good at doing atrocities of their own. So I mean, let's not, you know, pot calling the kettle black to some degree.
The thing is, the Japanese. Well, I'm just saying in regards to Japanese doing it to the Chinese, because the Chinese can't invade Japan, can they? Because I mean, it's like, for example, Mongolians tried to invade Japan twice, and what happens? Typhoons come in at really convenient times.
This is where you get kamikaze from. Is that, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, divine. Yeah, and it's
divine wind.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like the other thing is what was it? Yeah, the thing about Japan is it's like Shinzo Abe tried to scrap that Article 9 for ages, but he just can never get them, because you need a 2/3 majority in both houses. Which, keep bearing in mind about Japan, bearing in mind Japan only voted out their government like 5 times since World War II. They're not people who they don't like changing things. So
Yeah, it's a
Shinzo
very
Abe-
stable country for the most part. Yeah.
well, it's not just that. Like, Japanese people are very conservative people in the sense of they just don't like changing stuff. You know, it's kind of like the old phrase. You know, if something's not broken, don't fix it. That's why,
Yep.
for example, Japanese will have cars from like from the 90s because they go, well, the cars from the 90s work all right, so why bother going for cars nowadays?
It's like the Japanese still use fax machines, which not many other people do. It's that sort of thing. Yeah. And smartphones are not particularly big in Japan compared to other places.
Yeah, but it's like I mean, I was talking about that anime Attack on Titan earlier. That supposedly the guy that made the manga that the anime's made from was received funding from Shinzo Abe, and he made other mangas as well. And supposedly they're all supposed to be propaganda for rescinding Article 9. but yeah, I mean, like to bring this back to like the British, you know, I mean, a lot of us kind of often sit around and think, oh, you know, like the empire's never going to be again. We'll just have to be like a retirement island essentially. But like, I mean, to go to like the costs, you know, like Sargon was talking about, like the costs of Eritrean foreign prisoners and stuff like that. But it's like, you know, someone was trying to calculate that the direct cost of immigration to Britain was like close to 100 billion pounds, which is like
easily,
a tenth of our like a tenth of our close to a tenth of our government spending. And I was thinking, well, what's the I mean, we were talking about doctors a minute ago, but like foreign doctors commit malpractice, or are I should say, for full transparency, are called in for malpractice tribunals at 16 times the rate of British doctors.
Yep.
So like, even when you can take their best example of like of immigrants sort of giving to our economy, essentially, it's actually an enormous cost. So you end up with this. I mean, I wonder if immigration potentially costs us about a quarter of our annual government budget.
Oh yeah.
Which, you know, it's just like,
you could use that money for useful things.
Yeah, like you could cut down on tax by a sizable amount and still have an enormous amount of spending money left over. You know, and we often get sort of baited into these conversations where we have to say, we have to justify the costs of sending them all back, essentially. But increasingly, I just think that there would be some amount of short-term damage to, like, you know, gutting the civil service and gutting this institution and having to build this from the ground up. But in the long run, I don't see a scenario where we win and Britain doesn't have a really solid opportunity to ascend into like another golden age of some description, if we could just fix some of the social ailments of our own people to go along with it.
Totally agree. Imagine if you had competent, actual British people running various departments, and you encouraged industry and entrepreneurship and real British people to do this stuff. I mean, as Aaron Hook's saying in the chat, and as you said, Aaron, Britain could come into a new golden age. I think that's perfectly possible.
We just need to get these people out.
Yep, I think that is true. Deportations, mass deportation, it's absolutely essential, if you ask me.
Well, but just our ruling class, though. We need to get them out, and then.
Absolutely, for sure.
And I mean, it's so weird to look at it currently at the landscape now, because it's like, in so many ways they seem weaker than ever, but they're also just transitioning into a more authoritarian mode. So they also end up, in a lot of ways, appearing stronger than ever.
I don't know. I still think, as Aaron said in the chat, as you've said, Adam, and as Mitch has said, I still think, yeah, our so-called elites, and I put that in air quotes, of course, because they're in no way actually elite. They're flailing around. They know that their time is limited now. I think they know this. You know, they can only keep the lid on this for a limited amount of time now.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? Like, so if you play it out, it's like, okay, so they switch to a more authoritarian mode, and like so far, one of the things that like British, especially English people, have kind of excelled at is that like this sort of almost Slavic sort of petty cruelty that you'll get from like the regimes that existed over there, like Soviet Union specifically is what I'm talking about, doesn't work that well on us for whatever reason. Maybe we're just not low time preference enough. But we you know, the more they sort of try to tighten the screw, the more we just sort of respond with sort of mockery. And you know,
VPN,
like English people have gotten very good at turning, British people generally, I should say, have gotten very good at turning like every leftist term and selling point into a sneer, and throwing it back in their face. So it's like, so you can't have a ruling class that sees themselves as a genuine ruling class if they are on the receiving end of constant mockery. So
I'm also encouraged by these spontaneous protests at immigrant hotels.
yeah,
Increasingly happening in different places around the country. And when you look at the people protesting, they're not this fantasy far right of Keir Starmer and Labour. They're just mums and dads and sisters and brothers. They're just ordinary British people, you know?
Yeah, there was I think it was the Times made a cartoon about the protests, and I'm just going to get it up on my phone so I can remind myself of it. So yeah, they had like a caricatures of the protesters, right? And they depict them as regular people holding up these signs, but then the ground they're standing on underneath has like the English skinhead, sort of waiting in the shadow, and he's got like hate tattooed across his knuckles and made in England with the St. George's cross on his shoulder, which as a tattoo guy's kind of hard. I'll be honest.
Kind of a cool tattoo,
yeah. What was the guy? What did he have on his knuckles in Master and Commander? Was it Hold Fast? Tattooed
Hold Fast, yeah. Hold Fast.
I'd never go for tattoos, especially not on my hands. But if I did, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Sailors used to get a pig tattooed on their foot as well, and that's because pigs are really good swimmers and they very seldom drown.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, but it's so like yeah, that was the Times cartoon. So it's like, and of course with them, right? As with always, right? It's always projection, right? If they have to say, oh yeah, they say this, but what they mean, what they're saying is, we say lots of things that we don't mean. And we've always got ulterior motives.
No name in the chat is saying the Times is a disgusting anti-white publication. They went after the Woodlander initiative this week. Woodlander has often been in the chat on this stream, and I'd like to have him on one week if he's ever free. If he wants to get hold of me on X or something, or if any of you guys know him, I'd be happy to have him on the stream. But yeah, Woodland is a good bloke, so yeah.
I'll have to look up that hit piece they did. But yeah, I don't think there's a month that goes past where the Times doesn't do some awful hit piece on someone.
Used to be a right-wing newspaper a long time ago.
Yeah, they called it the Thunderer. In fact, I'm pretty sure if you buy the print issue of the Times, it still has in the headers of the centerfold, it still has the old line with the Thunderer on it.
It's like the Telegraph. When I was a young chap, the Telegraph was a right-wing newspaper. It certainly isn't now, really. Certainly not pro-British.
I think the Telegraph has become more right-wing again quite recently. I don't know what spurred that on, but they've definitely got a lot better in the sort of last year or so.
Apparently, the Times smeared the Woodlander Initiative as a neo-Nazi land buying group.
Yeah.
It's funny, the only neo-Nazis who the Brits really do like, the British government, I mean, and the establishment, is the Azov guys in Ukraine. They're fine.
Yeah.
And they actually have swastikas tattooed on them and stuff like this. But they're all right, though.
Yeah, it's weird how that works.
It's funny, isn't it? We've got a couple of super chats, guys, which I will address briefly, unless people have got... did you have something else you wanted to talk about, Mitch? You're muted, Mitch.
I know, like, it's not really much to talk about, but just a small bit on Ukraine. Because Donald Trump, he tweeted something about Ukraine and Russia, and basically the whole thing is that you can just tell whatever intelligence Trump is receiving, it's giving him a false impression. Yeah, it's giving him a false impression about the Russians, like, because he keeps thinking Putin wants to come to a deal, and they're like, no, Putin doesn't have any reason to come to a deal, especially when
Trump's got a really exaggerated idea of Russian casualties, and I noticed that Charlemagne, everyone knows Charlemagne in our neck of the woods. He tweeted that where is Trump getting this bullshit that many Russians are getting killed, because they're not. It's just not true.
The head of the CIA. Right? I mean, did you see his reaction? There was a cabinet meeting, Mal televised, where he was just like jumping for joy, pretty much, when you had Trump announcing stuff like he was going to clamp down on the cover up for the Epstein list, plus also sending more weapons to Ukraine. So that's his pick. That's a CIA guy.
Yeah, gay Lindsey Graham was thinking it was great too. The neocon gay guy. It's just, yeah, geez. Anyway, we've got a couple of super chats to address, guys. Gerin, who is a good friend of the channel, who often sends us a little bit of cash, which, by the way, all goes on paying for unlimited streaming on StreamYards, and also for my streaming on X as well. That's what that cash gets used for. So it goes straight back into the channel. Gerin very kindly sends us $5 and says hello. And thank you for that, Gerin. You've often supported us. And we've also got a $3 USD chat from Sheev Palpacringe, who says, I know this is an odd question, but when you were in the South African military back in the day, did they find it very odd that an Englishman like yourself wanted to join? So that's directed at me, and I'll answer it. The reason I did is I was asked to do it, or it was suggested to me that I do it by a South African soldier. Who was an English-speaking South African, not an Afrikaner. He was an English-speaking South African, and by the way, just so anyone knows, whether you're an English speaker or an Afrikaans-speaking white South African didn't mean you couldn't speak the other language. Everyone learnt both at school back in the day. So the English-speaking South Africans could certainly understand Afrikaans, and Afrikaners could speak English. Did people find it odd that I joined? A little bit, but not that much. And the particular unit I was in had quite a lot of guys from overseas. Like, we had Portuguese guys from Angola. We had one Canadian guy. We had an American. It wasn't that unusual in the particular unit I was in, which was not a standard South African infantry unit. But anyway, yes, that's why we did that. And thank you very much, Sheev Palpacringe. Always welcome super chats and what have you. And as I say, all that money just goes straight back into the channel. I mean, I say all that money. It's not very much, to be honest with you. And it doesn't actually pay for the extra money I spend on the channel, but it certainly helps. And I'm extremely grateful. Joe says a bit like foreign leaders.
She's been around for a long time.
Yeah, Sheep's been around a long time, and he's sent us a couple of super chats in the past as well.
Yeah, he's a top bloke.
And Gearin, like us, sends us $5, not every week, but almost. So thank you to. Yep, thanks, Gearin. Gearin's name is not that on YouTube, so and that's fine. If people want to keep their anonymity, I'm fully in favour of it. We don't dox people on this channel. Anyway, yeah. So unless you had any final thoughts, Salman or Mitch?
What were we talking about beforehand? Oh, we were talking about getting the British elite out.
Yeah.
Just that I just don't understand. Like, is it going to be the case that so as we sort of hit them with more mockery as time goes by, and it becomes a less prestigious job for them to do, you start getting even less competence in the British establishment, and then what happens at that point? Do we get like system collapse before we get regime change? Like, I'd rather go for the nice easy regime change first and just fix everything from there. But I don't
know. One thing that I think could happen, Adam, is that I very much hope that Reform win the next general election, not because I particularly think Reform are going to be all that great, but they'll certainly shake things up a bit, and possibly provide room for more radical people. But also, if Corbyn goes ahead with his Britain Last movement that he's set up with these Muslims, that's going to take votes away from the Labour Party, and you've got to destroy the so-called Conservatives. I think that is true. But you've also got to destroy the Labour Party, and if you can destroy both of them, then the field is going to be a lot more open than it is at the moment.
I think the Tories. I think the next election will be that second tap that will finish the Tories off for good. I don't
really hope so.
Because as much as people hate Labour, I mean, this is hard to tell. I could be completely off, but I don't think I haven't seen or sensed any sort of interest, as much as people hate Labour, with anyone going back to the Tories. They're all kind of invested in going somewhere else.
Yeah. It will at least, if Reform win, right? And I don't really trust Nigel Farage these days, and I don't like Zia Yusuf at all. But if Reform win, it's going to really shake things up.
Yeah, I almost corrected on you on that. It is Jezbollah. That's what we're going to call it.
Yeah, well,
that's what it will be referred to.
I'm happy with either of those. I think it's fine, and it's certainly what they're going to represent. But anyway, So I think there's quite a lot of hope, because I can't see the Conservatives winning the next general election, and I certainly can't see Labour winning. Can you? I mean, who the hell is going to vote Labour? I mean, and we're 3.5 years away from an election.
Well,
probably.
I mean, you can see what they're going to do. I mean, the funny thing is that there's a lot of people talking about how the regime wants Farage, right? And there's going to be some truth to that. There's absolutely going to be a lot of elements within the British state that are like, where they've seen Farage enough, right? Because he goes through the news cycle enough, where they've interviewed him or they've spoken to him, and as the rhetoric has changed in the country, Farage doesn't seem half as radical to those people anymore. So they now look at it and think, I don't necessarily like the guy. In fact, I probably still hate the guy, but the entire paradigm as it stands now looks like it's falling apart at the seams. We need to do something. This guy, with his his sort of like cutting down of immigration potentially, and potential return to some Thatcherist policies economically, could be the person that at least staves off something catastrophic. That I think that's what some of them see, but at the same time, like they've got the press and all that is just chock full of basically just full on communists,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they basically do reforms campaigning for them because they run around and scream all day about how reform are deeply racist and they're going to deport all the immigrants and they're evil, and that's basically, they're basically doing the hard campaign work that reform is sometimes unwilling to do themselves. And that's their strategy, isn't it? They want to drive people to Labour out of fear. They want to get everyone with even any slight inclination of leftism in them to go to Labour, purely just to keep reform out.
Don't think it'll work. I don't think that's going to work.
No, I think they could still win, but on a massively reduced majority. But I don't want to believe something so over the top as reform winning winning the next election in their second proper election ever. But I mean, it looks possible. It looks very possible. So who knows?
It depends on the policies that they come out with as the election gets closer. It really does. If they were to come out with a full-on net zero immigration, which is not enough, it's nowhere near enough, but it would be a vast improvement on what we have now.
Yeah.
And they were to go back to, we're going to deport all the illegal immigrants, all the illegal economic migrants, which is what they really are, because they're coming from France, for fuck's sake. They're not coming from Eritrea. If they were to go back to that, I reckon they'd walk it, mate. If they went back to that. But of course, they've been humming and hawing around that stuff lately because of Zia Yusuf and his influence. So I don't know. Mitch, you've been involved with some of this. What's your opinion? And you're also a young fella. I mean, I think you're even younger than Adam. So
yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't know how old Asman is, but I'm in my mid-20s, so like, yeah.
I always assume Adam is like 28 or something.
I'm in my early 30s.
I was being nice, mate. Anyway. I knew you were in your early 30s.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. It's one thing as well. On one hand, like, as much as we can be skeptical of reform, it's also a matter of, I do think, for example, DEI stuff is something that can't be underrated. Like, if they scrap all the DEI hiring, it opens up a lot of opportunities for guys outside, because, I mean, I can speak anecdotally. There are plenty of, like, university graduates who are, straight white men such as myself, who they just can't get they can't get a graduate level job because it's literally just, there's nothing for them because of all the DI stuff. It's just, it's like back in America, before Trump got elected again, everyone was talking about how if Trump just gets rid of the DI stuff, it opens up a lot of avenues for a lot of our guys over there, because it's all well and good, us complaining, but we have to actually staff the institutions. But it's like, you have a whole idea of a great man, as Thomas Carlyle would put it. Well, great men also need opportunities, and if those opportunities are blocked off, then there's nothing that the likes of us can do. But if we get someone like Farage or Trump opening up those previously closed doors, it's into the second order effects, it's pretty massive, even though it's really simple in regards to scheme of things.
I think we've also got to look at, you've got Restore Britain, Rupert Lowe's group, and all those people around him sitting in the background. And who knows what they're going to do over the next couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, as much as a lot of people are setting for reform to be a disappointment, like, it massively injects the anti-immigration argument straight into the heart of politics if they win.
Yes.
So,
yes.
I mean, I'll still roll out and vote for him at the next election.
Yeah, me too. I said that at the beginning of the stream, Adam, before Mitch and yourself joined. I'll hold my nose and vote reform, and I still do vote in British elections because I've got a house in Britain. Although actually it's my son's, but officially it's mine. But yeah, so I'll hold my nose and vote reform. Unless something happens with Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain that changes that in the next few years, which is possible, but
yeah, I think he'll never make that a party. I think that'll always just be a political movement. And to be honest, I think it works better that way because you can apply a lot of pressure.
Let's hope he
I mean, you look at Farage himself. Yeah, I mean, you look at how much pressure Farage was able to leverage on the establishment from outside.
Yes.
You know, so it's what we need is we need a Farage 2.0, a Mecca Farage, to you know be the man that Farage was probably going to struggle to be, because I don't want to say coward because that sounds harsh, but Farage does sometimes struggle to maintain his mettle.
He does. I mean, after Brexit, I mean, I was thinking about this week. Like, there's been about 5 times in my life when I felt real joy, you know, absolute joy. And they were when my son was born, when he passed out of Britannia Royal Naval College. I've never been as proud in my life as when I went to that. When the HMS Hermes, the victorious British flagship, came home from the Falklands, I went to Portsmouth, and all of the seashore was just a sea of Union flags and white ensigns, and it was just a fabulous day to be British. Also, when we won the Brexit vote, I sat up all night watching that, and when we won it, I was just so happy. And then Farage walks away. Instead of saying, okay, we've won this, now we're going to make sure it works, he just walked away from it, which really pissed me off, to be honest. And then, of course, the vile Alexander Johnson, so-called Boris, completely subverted it, which I knew he would do when he came out with that, oh, let's get Brexit done shit, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, you think of the times you've had real joy in your life, and I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, you know, also like when Ian Botham mainly, but also Bob Willis and the whole England team won an Ashes series against Australia. It looked like we were going to lose disastrously, and they came from behind. That was fucking brilliant. But I don't even watch sports ball anymore. I don't watch Test cricket. I don't watch Test rugby union. Don't give a shit about any of it anymore because it's all a con, and the England team's not English, basically. So,
yeah. I mean, bit of a rant, but watching sport in England is so expensive now. I've heard it's a lot better in Australia, but here,
like I said, mate, I used to be a cricket fanatic. The love of my life would send me an email when I was at work, and she'd say, I have prepared the cricket worshipping ground for when I got home, so we could sit down and watch the Test match. You know, particularly if it was Ashes, England, Australia, and I don't watch it at all now, mate. I couldn't even tell you who holds the Ashes at the moment because I just don't follow it anymore at all.
Same. I was quite into like the tennis, rugby. Yeah, I liked cricket as well. I played cricket when I was younger.
I used to play cricket. I used to play rugby union. But like I said, I don't follow it at all anymore because it's just a con now. And the England team, whether it be rugby union or cricket, they're not really English, many of them. And as for football, just forget it. I mean, you know, as soon as they start going down on as soon as they go down on their knees, I'm not interested, basically.
Yeah, I watched the cycling this year, but to be honest, even that pissed me off because obviously the Tour de France has just finished, right? Mm-hmm. And they had this guy, Ben Healy. He was in the yellow jersey for a day. Great rider. He's born in England, right, in the Midlands. Grew up in England. Still lives in England, I believe. He's an Irishman. Because his parents are Irish, right? And they were immigrants. So it's like, okay, he's ethnically Irish, right? So then there's this other guy, Oscar Onley, who's got quite a bright future ahead of him. Amazing rider, still very young, incredible athlete. Onley, I suppose, is like a Huguenot name, but his parents are English, right? He was born and for a time raised in London, but they moved to Scotland, to the Scottish border when he was I think youngish, like a teenager.
Yeah.
Scottish. He's a Scottish rider.
Ah, right, okay.
And it's just it winded me the fuck up the whole way through.
It's, you know, Huguenots. I've got nothing against Huguenots. I mean, Farage is from a Huguenot family. Lady of Shalott, the wonderful Lady of Shalott, Huguenot family. So, you know, I got nothing against Huguenots.
Yeah, I mean, Huguenot. I mean, that was a long time ago, and
It was.
although they didn't exactly. I mean, talk about an argument against immigration. Even the Huguenots caused problems when they came over. It wasn't all plain sailing, but it was a long time ago.
You're only talking about 50,000 Huguenots over
Yes.
100 years.
Yeah.
So that and Britain gets vastly more than that in 1 year now. So you know, and they're not Northern European Protestants either.
No.
So it's just so bullshit. Because the left will always talk about the Huguenots. Oh, Britain's always been a nation of immigrants. Yeah, all right, fuck off.
It's insane.
It is. It's just a lie, mate. We live in a time of lies, basically.
Yeah. Although an Englishman who describes himself as an Englishman in Britain won the Giro d'Italia earlier in the year, so there was that. That was good.
Good. Yeah, absolutely.
It was as well. That was Simon Yates, and he put in a performance. I think there was a podcast I saw where they mapped all like the top endurance sports performances, and I think his performance on this big climb on like the second to last stage, which won the tour for him, is one of the top 40 physiological sort of human performances of all time. So yeah,
that's good.
We still put in a good showing occasionally.
And there is some movement. I mean, you know, they are gradually chucking out the blokes pretending to be women from women's sport. I mean, that's good. I fully support that.
Oh, they did that with the darts the other day. Did you?
Yeah, no, I saw that, and I thought great.
Yeah, there was a lot of people that were like head scratching in the office at work. They're like, "Are there gender differences in darts?"
Well, do you know what? I don't care. Adam, and I'm just happy they chucked him out, basically.
Yeah.
I don't care if there's any difference. There probably isn't in darts, but who gives a shit, you know? That's my view. I'm fed up with these fucking people. Get rid of them. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so funny. Any final thoughts, Mitch? You're muted at the moment, mate.
I don't really bother with sports these days. I can tell you. I mean, traditionally, my family support Wolves in terms of football. I can tell you where they are in the Premier League. I haven't watched football for close to a decade.
Wolverhampton Wanderers, I believe.
Yeah. I don't know anything about them these days. The only thing I know about them these days is the fact that I don't bother Chinese. But that's
like probably quite a few British football clubs, I would imagine. Or if
it's like
the Chinese, the Saudi Arabians, or who knows else, you know.
I think Wolves were one of the last clubs to actually be owned by, like, one of the last major football clubs to be still owned by an Englishman, because it was like 2014. It was Steve Morgan, who I think like he was like a steel guy basically, but then he had to sell it. Then he sold it off to some Chinese, Folsom International or something. I think Wolves was one of the last football clubs, like major football clubs, to be sold to foreigners, but don't quote me on that one.
When I was younger, because my grandparents worked for like the Foreign Office in Hong Kong, and when he retired from that, one of his sort of gifts was, because his brother worked over there as well, but he was in the police. they got a flat in Malta between them that they shared. There was like a block of flats that lots of like I suppose the British government owned it, and they gave a bunch of these apartments out,
Cool.
sort of piecemeal as retirement gifts. And one of the other guys that had the flat in the block was this guy Derek Dugan, who was a Wolverhampton player from back in the day, and he taught me to swim when I was a child. He was a very, very lovely guy.
Cool. That's cool. All right, guys. I just will say to people, do check out AI's channel. It's called AI Shire Homelander, and I do recommend his interview with the independent journalist who's been covering the migrant hotel protests that he did
I saw that
earlier
as well.
this week.
That's very worth a watch.
Yeah, go check that out, watch, and do subscribe to his channel. I will just say to people in the chat, if you're still here, please hit that thumbs up button. It really helps the channel. And do subscribe for more content. And I'm going to play us out the tune. There we go.
It's of a shepherd's daughter, dear, keeping sheep all on the plain, who should ride by night, William, and he got drunk by wine with me, right, fa-la-la, diddle-al day. Well, he has mounted off his horse and quickly laid her down. And when he had his will offer, he rose her up again with me, right, fa-la-la, diddle-al day. Since you have had your will of me, pray tell to me your name. So when our dear little babe is born, I might call him the same with me, right, fa-la-la, diddle-al day. Sometimes they call me Jack, he said, sometimes they call me John. But when I am at the King's High Court, they call me Knight William with me, right, fa-la-la, diddle-al day. He's put his foot all in the stirrup and away he then did ride. She's tied a handkerchief around her waist and followed at the horse's side with me, right, fa-la-la, diddle-al day. She's run till she come to the river brink, she's fell on her belly and swam. And when she came to the other side, she took to her heels and she ran with me, right, fa-la-la, diddle-al day. She's run till she come to the King's High Court, she's knocked and she's ringed. There's none so ready as the King himself to let this fair maid in with me, right, fa-la-la, diddle-al day. Good morn to you, fair maid, he said. Good morn, kind sir, said she. Have you a knight all in your court this day? Have robbed me with me, right, fa-la-la, diddle-al day. Well, have he robbed you of your gold or any of your store? Or have he robbed you of your gold ring you wear on your little finger with me, right, fa-la-la, diddle-al day? Well, he ain't robbed me of me gold or any of me store, but he's robbed me of me maiden, madam, which grieves my heart full sore with me, right, fa-la-la, diddle-al day. Well, if it be a married man, then hanged he shall be. But if he be a single man, then his body I will give to thee with me, right, fa-la-la, diddle-al day. The king has called all his men by one, by two, by three. Knight William used to be the foremost man, but now all behind comes he with me right. Fa-la-la, diddle-al-day. Oh, cursed be the very hour that I got drunk by wine. For to have a shepherd's daughter dear, to be a true lover of mine with me right. Fa-la-la, diddle-al-day. Well, if you think me a shepherd's daughter, leave to me alone. If you make me lady of 1,000 men, I'll make you lord of 10 and with me right. Fa-la-la, diddle-al-day. So then these two to church they went, and then small things was done. She appeared like some duke's daughter, and him like a squire's son with me right. Fa-la-la, diddle-al-day.
Okay, and that was The Knight and the Shepherd's Daughter, which is a traditional English song from the 1600s. And that's from a good friend of the channel, Patriotic Archives channel on YouTube. Do go and check him out. He's got some great military and naval music, and also quite a lot of folk songs like that. Good channel, go and check him out. Thank you very much to my guests this evening, Adaman, Mitch, and AI. And we'll see you on Wednesday for our midweek history stream, which this week is going to be about the Australian Battle of Long Tan in the Vietnam War in 1966, I think it was, 66 or 67. And really extraordinary battle, about 100 Australian diggers. And they ended up fighting about 2,000 main force Vietnamese commies. So yeah, come and watch that. I've been wanting to do a Commonwealth topic, an old Commonwealth topic on the history stream for a while, and it was suggested we do that next week. So we're going to do that, and I think the week after that, I'm going to be on with Mitch, and we're going to be doing Henry V. Not particularly Agincourt, because that, you know, we've done quite a lot of streams on Agincourt and what have you, but we're going to look at Henry V's general career, and also what he got up to after the Battle of Agincourt, as he gradually basically took over France. So anyway, we'll be doing that. And apart from that, in the meantime, don't let the bastards grind you down, and we'll see you next time. Go well.
Yeah, good night, everyone.
All right, all.